At 4 a.m., my Alexa spoke without being prompted. Leave now, take everyone. When I unplugged her from the wall, she kept talking through dead speakers. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Then I smelled gas and grabbed my daughter. From the street, we watched that blue ring still pulsing in my dark apartment window, counting down. 20 seconds later, the entire building exploded. But here's what still haunts me 3 years later. The explosion killed one person that night. My neighbor Vera. She was the only one who didn't hear the warning, because according to what I discovered later, she was the one who was supposed to die. My name is Ryan Torres. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a network security engineer in Denver. That night, my 11-year-old daughter Zara was staying with me for the weekend. The woman who died, Vera Novak, wasn't just my neighbor. She was my best friend since college, the person who babysat my daughter. And according to the FBI files I've now read 100 times, she was in contact with something that knew the explosion would happen. Before I tell you everything, hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more true stories about technology acting in ways it shouldn't. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because what happened to us in Denver has apparently happened in 12 other cities. That Friday night in October started perfectly. Zara had just performed her first violin solo at her school's fall concert, and she'd absolutely nailed it. We'd gone for ice cream afterward, even though it was almost 9 at night and getting cold. She was flying high on applause and sugar, talking non-stop about how Jake from her class had messed up his trumpet part and how her music teacher, Mrs. Goldman, had given her a special bow. These were the weekends I lived for since the divorce, when I got to just be dad, not the guilty parent trying to make up for a broken home. We lived in Riverside Heights, an old apartment building that had been converted from a hotel in the 1950s. The place had character, which is what landlords say when they mean the heating clanks and the floors creak. But it was affordable and had a good school district, and the neighbors were mostly families and grad students. Quiet people living quiet lives. Vera lived directly across the hall in 4B. She'd moved in about the same time I had, both of us starting fresh after different life changes. She was 28, finishing her PhD in biochemistry at UC Denver, and she was probably the smartest person I'd ever met. Also, the most absent-minded. I kept her spare key because she locked herself out at least once a week, always at the worst possible times. She'd knock on my door at midnight, holding a stack of research papers, apologizing while I grabbed her key off my hook. "Dad, can Vera come to my next concert?" Zara asked as I tucked her into the pull-out couch I'd set up with her favorite purple sheets. She said she wanted to see me perform, but she was stuck at the lab tonight. Vera was always stuck at the lab, working on something she'd explain in terms that went completely over my head. Cancer research, protein synthesis, molecular something or other. But she had this gift for breaking it down for Zara, turning complex chemistry into fun analogies about Legos and cooking. "We'll make sure she knows the date," I said, kissing Zara's forehead. "Now get some sleep. Mom picks you up at noon tomorrow and you know she doesn't like waiting." Zara rolled her eyes but smiled, settling into her pillows. I turned on the Alexa in the living room to play rain sounds, her favorite background noise since the divorce. White noise helped her sleep in the apartment, drowning out the neighbors and the street sounds. My apartment was small but organized, everything in its place. Working in network security makes you paranoid about some things and weirdly organized about others. I had smart locks, security cameras, and yes, the Alexa, all connected to my phone. I could monitor everything remotely, a habit from protecting corporate networks all day. That night, I did my usual check before bed. Doors locked, windows secured, alarm system armed for the night. The Alexa sat on my bookshelf, its blue ring dim in the darkness, rain sounds pattering steadily from its speaker. I'd actually updated the device earlier that day. Amazon had been pushing firmware updates all week, and the thing had been glitchy lately. It would randomly announce the weather or start playing music nobody asked for. Vera joked that it was becoming sentient, but I knew it was just buggy software. That's always what it was. Bad code, not ghosts in the machine. Around 11, I heard Vera come home. Her door had a distinctive squeak, and she always dropped her keys at least once while unlocking it. Through the thin walls, I could hear her making tea, probably settling in for another all-night research session. She'd been excited about something recently, a breakthrough she couldn't quite explain, but said would change everything. "We're so close, Ryan," she'd said last week over coffee. 5 years of work, and we're finally so close. I fell asleep thinking about normal things. Zara's concert, the project deadline on Monday, whether I should finally ask out the woman from the coffee shop who always remembered my order. Normal thoughts for a normal night in a normal apartment building where nothing extraordinary ever happened. The last normal night of my life, really, because after what happened at 4 a.m., I've never been able to look at technology the same way again. The Alexa sat there on its shelf, doing what it always did, playing rain sounds on loop, its ring pulsing gently with the rhythm of the audio. Just a piece of consumer electronics, mass-produced in a factory somewhere, containing a simple AI that could barely understand basic commands half the time. Not the kind of thing that could predict the future. Not the kind of thing that could speak without power. Not the kind of thing that could know about the corroded gas pipe in the basement that had been slowly leaking for 6 hours while we all slept above it like sitting ducks. But at exactly 4 a.m., that normal device would do something impossible. It would save 12 families, including mine. It would speak with a voice that wasn't programmed into it. And it would know things that no algorithm could calculate, no sensor could detect, and no technology could explain. The FBI would spend months trying to understand it. University scientists would write papers about it. And I would spend every night afterward wondering the same thing that keeps me awake even now. What was really speaking through that machine? And why did it choose to save us while letting Vera die? The answer to that question would turn out to be more terrifying than the explosion itself, because sometimes the thing saving you has its own reasons, its own calculations, and its own terrible price that someone has to pay. At exactly 4 a.m., the rain sounds stopped abruptly, and Alexa's voice cut through the silence of my apartment. "Ryan, leave now. Take Zara. Take everyone." The voice was wrong, completely wrong. It wasn't the cheerful female voice Amazon programmed into their devices. This was deeper, urgent, and somehow it knew my name. Not the wake word I'd programmed, but my actual name. I sat up in bed, heart already racing, trying to process what I'd heard. The blue ring on the device was pulsing erratically, not in its usual smooth pattern, but in sharp, aggressive bursts, like a strobe light. "Alexa, stop!" I commanded, my voice thick with sleep and confusion. The device went silent for exactly 2 seconds, then spoke again, louder this time. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. "Gas leak, basement. Harold Kim unconscious. Wake everyone." Harold was our building superintendent who lived in the basement apartment. How could Alexa possibly know about Harold? How could it know about anything beyond weather reports and song lyrics? I threw off my covers and crossed the room in 3 steps, yanking the device's plug from the wall with enough force to crack the outlet cover. The power cord came free, the adapter separated completely, and the device should have died instantly. Instead, the blue ring grew brighter, and the voice continued from speakers that had no electricity running to them. 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Vera's apartment. She can't hear me. Her carbon monoxide detector battery died Tuesday. That's when the smell hit me, faint but unmistakable once you noticed it. Natural gas mixed with that sulfur additive they put in it, mercaptan. The smell they add specifically so people will notice leaks. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. If I could smell it up here, the concentration in the basement had to be deadly. I grabbed my phone and the unplugged Alexa, which impossibly kept talking. 3 minutes, 5 seconds, 12. Families. 4 exits. Use the north stairwell only. "Dad, why is Alexa talking?" Zara stood in the doorway of my bedroom, rubbing her eyes, confused but not yet scared. She was wearing her favorite Avengers pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. I had to make a decision right then about how much fear to show her. Too much, and she might panic. Too little, and she might not move fast enough. "Get your shoes on right now," I said, keeping my voice controlled but firm. "No questions. Emergency drill, just like we practiced. We'd done fire drills before, talking about what to do if we ever had to leave quickly. She nodded and ran to get her sneakers, trained by divorce and custody exchanges to move fast when adults used that tone. I dialed 911 while pulling on my own shoes, the phone cradled between my shoulder and ear. 911, what's your emergency? The operator sounded tired, probably near the end of a long shift. Gas leak at Riverside Heights Apartments, 427 West Columbia. Multiple families at risk. Send fire department now. I rattled off the information while grabbing Zara's jacket and my keys. The Alexa in my hand announced, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Vera still at desk, headphones on, classical music blocking all sound. The hallway was dark and quiet when I opened my door. No smoke, no visible signs of danger, but the gas smell was stronger here. I pounded on Vera's door with the side of my fist, the sound echoing through the corridor. Vera, emergency, open up! Nothing, not even the sound of movement inside. I used her spare key, my fingers fumbling with the lock while Zara held onto my shirt, scared now by the urgency in my movements. The door swung open to reveal Vera at her desk, exactly as the voice had said. Huge noise-canceling headphones covered her ears, her laptop screen filled with chemical formulas, papers scattered everywhere. She was completely absorbed, typing frantically, oblivious to everything around her. I grabbed her shoulder and she jumped, spinning around with wide eyes. Ryan? What's wrong? Is Zara okay? She pulled off her headphones and I could hear Beethoven's Ninth Symphony blasting at a volume that must have been destroying her hearing. Gas leak, whole building. We need to leave now. I pulled her from her chair, but she twisted back toward her desk. My research. I need to save it. She grabbed her laptop, yanking the power cord free, hugging it to her chest like a baby. The Alexa in my other hand announced, 1 minute, 45 seconds. Wake other families. North stairs only. South stairs compromised. We ran down the hallway, and I started pounding on doors, shouting for people to get out. The Johnsons in 3C stumbled out with their twin toddlers. Mrs. Chen in 3A appeared in her nightgown, her cat clutched in her arms. Gas leak. Everyone out. Use the north stairwell. The unplugged Alexa kept counting. 1 minute, 20 seconds. Harold Kim needs medical attention. Basement apartment. People were emerging confused and scared, but they moved when they smelled the gas, now strong enough that everyone could detect it. Zara stayed close to me, her hand gripping mine so tight it hurt. We reached Harold's basement apartment last, the gas smell now overwhelming. I kicked at his door until the frame splintered, and it flew open. Harold was on his couch, unconscious but breathing, his face an unhealthy gray color. 2 of the younger guys from the second floor helped me carry him up the north stairs while the Alexa announced, 45 seconds. Clear the building. Minimum safe distance 100 feet. By the time we burst out of the north exit onto the street, I could see lights turning on in the surrounding buildings. Someone had pulled the fire alarm, and its shrieking wail finally gave voice to the danger we were all running from. 12 families in various states of undress stood on the sidewalk, children crying, adults counting heads, everyone staring at the building that had been our home. The Alexa in my hand had gone quiet, but its blue ring still pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat, like it was alive and watching. 30 seconds left, according to its last count, and I found myself believing it completely. Standing on the sidewalk with 12 families huddled around me, I made a decision that would haunt me forever. Everyone was accounted for except we were all scattered, some people still too close to the building, others wandering confused in the street. I started herding everyone back, pushing them further from the building, when Vera suddenly gasped beside me. My research! Her face went white, and she looked at the laptop in her arms with horror. The backup drives, 5 years of clinical trials. They're still in my apartment. Everything else is on those drives. Before anyone could react, she shoved her laptop into my arms and started running back toward the building. Vera, no! I screamed, dropping the laptop and lunging forward to grab her, but she was already 10 feet ahead, moving with the determination of someone who'd made an irreversible choice. 20 seconds, I shouted, somehow knowing the exact count without looking at the still pulsing Alexa on the ground. My body moved to follow her, but Zara's arms wrapped around my waist from behind, holding me with all her 11-year-old strength. "Dad, don't leave me." The terror in her voice froze me in place. I had to choose right then, physically stop Vera and risk both of us dying, leaving Zara orphaned, or stay with my daughter and watch my best friend run into a building that was about to explode. The Alexa on the ground spoke one more time, different from before, softer and somehow sadder. "Choose the living. The equation is already balanced." I didn't understand what that meant, but my legs wouldn't move. Vera had reached the building entrance, her hand on the door handle. "Vera, please!" I screamed one more time. She turned back for just a second, and in the streetlight, I could see she was crying. She mouthed something that looked like, "I'm sorry," or maybe, "I know," then disappeared into the building. Harold, who was sitting on the curb getting oxygen from a neighbor who happened to be a nurse, tried to stand up. "Someone stop her!" But we all stood frozen, watching the dark entrance where she'd vanished. 10 seconds. I could see people in windows of surrounding buildings now, drawn by the fire alarm and commotion. 9 seconds. The fire trucks were still at least 2 minutes away, their sirens growing louder but not fast enough. 8 seconds. I pulled Zara against me and turned her face away from the building, pressing her head into my chest. 7 seconds. Mrs. Chen was praying in Mandarin. 6 seconds. The Johnson twins were crying. 5 seconds. I looked up at our building one last time and saw something impossible. In my dark apartment window, the Alexa that should have been on the ground with us was somehow still on the shelf, its blue ring pulsing steadily. 4 seconds. But the Alexa was also right there at my feet, unplugged and somehow still glowing. 3 seconds. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. 2 seconds. I covered Zara's ears with my hands. 1 second. The night went silent, even the fire alarm seeming to pause. 0. The explosion started from the basement, a deep rumbling that you felt in your chest before you heard it. The ground shook, and every car alarm for 3 blocks started screaming. Windows on the first floor blew out simultaneously, glass sparkling in the streetlight like deadly snow. Then the fire found the gas lines running up through the building, and the rest happened in slow motion that was actually only seconds. Each floor lit up from within, orange light flooding out before the windows shattered. The sound was nothing like movies make it seem. Not one big boom, but a series of concussions that hammered your ears and chest, each one feeding the next. The building didn't collapse, but it might as well have. Fire poured from every opening, reaching up into the night sky like hands grasping at stars. The heat hit us even from 100 feet away, forcing everyone to stumble backward. I kept Zara's face pressed against me, but I couldn't look away. Vera was in there. She'd run back into that inferno for backup drives, for research data, for 5 years of work that might save lives. The practical part of my brain knew she was already gone. Nobody could survive that. But I kept watching the entrance, somehow expecting her to come running out, coughing but alive, clutching those drives like she'd clutched her laptop. The fire department arrived in a chaos of sirens and lights, firefighters jumping out before the trucks fully stopped. They pushed us all back further, setting up a perimeter while they assessed the situation. "Is everyone out?" the fire chief shouted over the noise. "Anyone still inside?" I had to say it, had to force the words out even though they felt like glass in my throat. One person went back in. Vera Novak from 4B. She went in maybe 30 seconds before the explosion. The chief's face told me everything. He ordered his men to set up defensive positions only. No entry attempts. The building was fully involved, structurally compromised, too dangerous for search and rescue. Harold was loaded into an ambulance, oxygen mask strapped to his face. The paramedics said he'd be okay, that we'd gotten him out just in time before the carbon monoxide levels would have been fatal. Other families were being checked over, kids wrapped in Red Cross blankets. Everyone in shock, but alive. Alive because of an impossible warning from a device that shouldn't have worked without power. Alive because something had known exactly what would happen and when. Alive except for Vera. who'd made a choice that made no sense unless she'd known something we didn't. I looked down at the Alexa at my feet, still unplugged, still with that faint blue glow that was fading now like a dying heartbeat. Next to it lay Vera's laptop, the one she'd thrust into my arms before running back. The screen was still open, and I could see her last document, timestamp showing she'd been working on it right before I dragged her from her apartment. The title made my blood run cold. Final Protocol, Necessary Sacrifices in Probability Matrices. Below it was a single line of text she'd typed at 3:59 a.m., 1 minute before the Alexa started talking. I understand what you're asking. I accept. Save them all. 3 days after the explosion, I sat in a federal building downtown, staring at evidence that shouldn't exist. The FBI had taken over the investigation within hours of the fire, and now Agent Sarah Delgado was showing me things that made my understanding of reality crack and shift. "Mr. Torres," she said, sliding a tablet across the table, "we need you to explain how your Alexa device recorded this." On the screen was audio waveform data from my device, time-stamped from the past 6 months. The problem was that most of these recordings were from times when the device had been unplugged, powered off, or even in a different room from where the conversations happened. The recordings were all of Vera, hours and hours of her talking in her apartment, through walls that should have blocked any microphone. But it wasn't just her normal daily life being recorded. Every night at exactly 4 a.m., there was another voice in her apartment, barely audible, but definitely there. It didn't sound human. The frequency analysis showed patterns that no human vocal cords could produce, yet when processed through special software, it formed words. The voice was teaching her, showing her molecular structures, protein sequences, chemical formulas that, according to the CDC's best scientists, shouldn't have been discoverable with current technology. "Your neighbor was developing a treatment for childhood leukemia," Agent Delgado continued. "Specifically, a variant that affects about 200 children per year, with a 90% mortality rate. Her research was at least 30 years ahead of where it should be. The formulas she was working with require knowledge of protein folding that we haven't even developed the computers to calculate yet." She pulled up another file, Vera's research notes. They were filled with diagrams and equations, but every few pages there were notes in the margins. "The voice says this will work. Confirmed in dream state. Fourth-dimensional protein visualization successful. They show me how it looks from outside time." I thought about all the times Vera had seemed exhausted, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she'd joke about her chemistry dreams being more vivid than real life. "She knew," I said, the words coming out as barely a whisper. The last thing she typed on her laptop was about accepting a sacrifice. She knew she was going to die. Agent Delgado nodded and pulled up another file, this one from the building's security system that had backup power and survived the explosion. "This is from the basement camera, 30 minutes before the gas leak started." The grainy footage showed Harold's apartment. He was asleep on his couch, but there was someone else there, a figure that the camera couldn't quite focus on, like it was vibrating at a frequency that digital sensors couldn't capture properly. It moved to the gas valve on the wall, the one that connected to the building's main line. The figure didn't turn it or break it, it just touched it, and the metal began corroding at an impossible speed, decades of rust appearing in seconds. Then the figure looked directly at the camera, and for one frame, just one, it solidified enough to see. It looked like Vera, but wrong, like her image had been stretched across dimensions and folded back incorrectly. "That's not possible," I said, but even as I said it, I remembered the Alexa in my apartment window, still pulsing after I'd carried it outside. 2 devices in 2 places at once. "Mr. Torres, what did the voice tell you right before your neighbor ran back into the building?" Agent Delgado asked. I closed my eyes, remembering. It said, "Choose the living. The equation is already balanced." She pulled up one final file, a mathematical model that looked like something from a physics textbook. "Our analysts believe something was using your neighbor as a conduit, teaching her, preparing her to complete specific research. The gas leak was intentional, designed to happen exactly when it did. Why? I asked, though I was starting to understand. Because Vera's research will save approximately 12,000 children over the next decade, Delgado said, but only if she died that night. Our analysts found something in her notes from the night before. She'd discovered she had early-stage pancreatic cancer. She'd run the tests herself at the lab and hadn't told anyone. Survival rate with treatment, maybe 6 months. Without her death becoming public, her research would have been tied up in university bureaucracy for years. With her death in a tragic accident, it immediately went to the CDC and FDA for expedited approval. The math was horrifying in its simplicity. 1 death to save thousands. But there was more. Delgado showed me the list of residents in our building. Harold would have died from carbon monoxide poisoning without the warning. The Johnson twins both had a genetic marker for the exact type of leukemia Vera's research would cure. They'd develop it in their teens without treatment. Mrs. Chen's grandson in China, who she video called every week, would be diagnosed next year. Even Zara, my own daughter, carried recessive genes that meant her future children had a 25% chance of developing the disease. Whatever was speaking through your device, Delgado said, it didn't just save 12 families from a gas explosion. It positioned the exact people who needed to survive for maximum impact from Vera's research. Every person in that building was statistically likely to benefit from her work, either directly or through family members. She paused, studying my face. The voice knew exactly who needed to live and who needed to die to save the maximum number of lives. It made a calculation we wouldn't even know how to begin making. I thought about Vera running back into that building, tears on her face. She hadn't been running for backup drives. There were no backup drives. She'd been completing her part of an equation that something beyond our understanding had calculated. She'd known for weeks she was dying. The voice at 4 a.m. had been preparing her, teaching her not just chemistry, but acceptance. And when the moment came, she played her role perfectly, becoming both the victim and the hero in a story, orchestrated by something that could see every possible future and chose the one with the least death. 6 months after the explosion, I stood in the auditorium at Children's Hospital Colorado, watching Dr. Patterson present the first successful trial of the Novak protocol. 23 children who'd been given weeks to live were now in remission. Their parents were crying, hugging each other, hugging the medical staff. Vera's photograph was displayed on a massive screen behind the podium, her smile frozen in time, and everyone kept calling her a hero who died tragically before seeing her life's work save lives. They didn't know she'd orchestrated her own death. They didn't know about the voice at 4 a.m. or the impossible physics of an Alexa that worked without power. The official story was a gas leak caused by old pipes, a brilliant scientist who died trying to save her research, and a lucky coincidence that her work was complete enough to implement. Zara sat beside me, her hand in mine. She'd started having dreams about chemistry, she told me last week. Not nightmares, but beautiful dreams where molecules danced and showed her how they fit together. She was only 11, but she could already draw chemical structures that her science teacher had to Google to understand. Vera teaches me, she'd said simply when I asked how she knew these things. Not like a ghost, Dad, more like an echo that knows things. I didn't tell her that the FBI was monitoring our family, that Agent Delgado called me weekly to ask if anything unusual had happened, or that I'd found Zara's notebook filled with formulas that wouldn't be discovered for years. The Alexa had been taken as evidence, but I knew it was still active in some FBI lab somewhere. Delgado had accidentally let slip that it continued recording things at 4 a.m., conversations in languages that didn't exist, mathematical proofs for problems nobody had posed yet, and occasionally, weather reports for dates that hadn't happened yet, that always turned out to be accurate. They'd tried destroying it, she'd admitted after too much coffee during one of our meetings. The hammer went through it like it wasn't there. They'd tried burning it, but the fire wouldn't touch it. It sat in a lead-lined box now, still pulsing that blue light, still recording secrets from somewhere else. I'd gone through Vera's apartment before it was cleaned out, her parents too devastated to do it themselves. In her closet, I found journals dating back 2 years. The voice had first appeared in her dreams, she wrote, showing her impossible things that turned out to be true. Small things at first, like knowing when someone would call or what the weather would be next month. Then it started teaching her, showing her protein structures from angles that didn't exist in three-dimensional space. She'd been scared at first, convinced she was losing her mind. But when the formulas worked, when her research leaped forward in ways that amazed her professors, she'd accepted it. The final entry, dated the night before she died, was addressed to me. Ryan, if you're reading this, it means the equation balanced correctly. I know this sounds insane, but something has been preparing me for tomorrow night. It showed me the children who will live because of my work, showed me Zara graduating medical school, showed me the moment she discovers the cure for something even bigger than what I've done. I've seen the gas leak, seen myself running back into the building, seen you holding Zara back from following me. It has to happen exactly that way. The voice says that sometimes the universe needs very specific sacrifices to prevent greater tragedies. Tomorrow, 12 families survive a disaster, but more importantly, the right 12 families survive. Every person in our building is connected to future medical breakthroughs in ways we can't see yet. Harold's grandson will cure diabetes. Mrs. Chen's nephew will solve organ rejection. The Johnson twins will become doctors who save thousands. And Zara, your beautiful daughter, will do something that saves millions. But only if I die tomorrow. Only if my death makes my research public immediately, instead of it being buried in academic publications for decades. She'd known everything and chosen it anyway. The entry continued. The voice offered me a choice. Die at 30 from cancer, accomplishing nothing more, or die at 28 and change the course of human medicine. It showed me every child my work will save, every family that won't have to suffer what I watched happen in pediatric wards. The choice was easy. Tell Zara I'm proud of who she'll become. Tell her the chemistry dreams are real, and she should trust them. And Ryan, forgive yourself for not saving me. You couldn't have. The equation was already balanced. I kept one secret from everyone, even the FBI. A week ago, my new apartment's smoke detector, a simple battery-operated device with no smart features, spoke to me at 4 a.m. The same voice, somehow. It said just one thing. Zara's work begins in 2031. Prepare her. The dreams will intensify. Then it went silent and hasn't spoken since. But I know it's watching, calculating, preparing the next necessary sacrifice in an equation too vast for human comprehension. I installed security cameras, smart locks, and yes, even a new Alexa, because I've learned that when the universe wants to speak to you, it will use whatever tools are available. The memorial they installed at the site of our old building lists Vera as the sole victim of the tragedy, describing her as a brilliant scientist whose life-saving research survived even though she didn't. But I know the truth. She didn't die in that explosion. She became part of something larger, a calculation that spans time and space, saving lives through sacrifice. And sometimes, late at night, when Zara is asleep and I'm lying awake thinking about that night, I swear I can hear Vera's voice in the white noise of everyday electronics, still teaching, still calculating, still saving lives from wherever she exists now. The hardest part is living with the knowledge that we're all part of someone else's equation, that every tragedy might be preventing a bigger one, that the universe or God or whatever that voice belongs to has a plan that requires specific people to die so others can live. It makes you question every coincidence, every near miss, every moment of unexpected luck or loss. Was it random or was it calculated? Are we living our lives or are we just playing out roles in probability matrices we can't perceive? I don't have answers, but I have Zara, alive and brilliant and dreaming of molecules. I have the knowledge that 12 families survived because something impossible spoke through a mass-produced smart speaker. And I have the certainty that Vera Novak, my friend who locked herself out weekly and made terrible coffee and explained chemistry through food metaphors, made a choice to save thousands of children she'd never meet. That has to be enough. It has to be, because the alternative, that we're all just statistics in someone else's calculation is too terrifying to accept. If this story made you think about the strange coincidences in your own life, please subscribe for more true accounts of the impossible and comment below where you're watching from, especially if you've ever had technology act in ways it shouldn't, because according to Agent Delgado, these events are happening worldwide and they're increasing.